countdown, T-0. It is November 3rd. Today's the day. So big day. This last fact check video is just focusing on all the massive information about voting, and it just shouldn't be there. The president and nobody should be undercutting our election system. I guess the top message, our election system works. It works. It's not perfect. So that's okay not to be perfect. There is no perfect system, but it works. It should not be undercut. It should be supported. And so those are the basics. Basically, almost everything Trump criticizes about the voting system and it leading to fraud is incorrect and either a lie or a massive misrepresentation. So I guess that's kind of bottom line fact check. Video done. That's it. But there is some information. I have the top 10 list is on the, I'll kind of have that as a slide at the back. You can actually go to this one website article, CNN article, it summarizes it all pretty well as well. I'm just going to mention the top 10, and then I'm going to just let the facts speak for themselves, and I'm finito, and then I'm just going to be following the process. So I hope you are too. So. Number one, Trump can only lose if the Dems rig the election. That is false. And as any athlete will tell you, if somebody comes up to you saying, "Well, you can't win unless you cheat," you're gonna knock them. And so it's just bizarre for somebody to say that. He says it all the time. False. Mail-in voting is rife with fraud. False. There are instances of fraud, but it's not rife with fraud and no widespread voting fraud. And the widespread term is really throughout all his lies. Number three, unsolicited ballots are fraudulent. They are not fraudulent. They are common with the system. So that is just part of the system. Number four, illegal to count votes after election day. Absolutely incorrect. It depends on state law. And so if a state law says you can count up until a certain point, that's fine. If they say you can postmark a mail-in ballot and then it can be counted to a certain point, that's fine. That's state law. And that's what we follow. So that's a false statement. Unsolicited ballots are sent to illegal immigrants. A golden oldie for Trump, going back to 2016 claims of voter fraud or millions of illegals voting for Hillary Clinton, and that was based on a very faulty conservative media outlet who just threw a tweet up there as if it was a report. That was false, and still false. Illegal immigrants do not vote. They cannot vote. And ballots are not sent to illegal immigrants. They are only sent to people on the registered rolls, and those are all U.S. citizens. Number six, ballots received after election day are invalid. That is false. It may be true in certain areas, but most states have rules about when it can be received and if it's postmarked at a certain date. So that's about it. Number seven, rejected ballots are evidence of fraud. Nope, they are not. They are evidence of an election system that works. Ballots get rejected for all kinds of reasons, and it's not necessarily because of fraud. It can be a signature problem or some type of identity thing or whatever the state laws are. So that is not evidence. Number eight, foreign countries will print millions and millions and billions, as Carl Sagan would say, of ballots and rig the election. Totally false, totally unfounded, no basis for that whatsoever. And there's a lot of securities built into the system to prevent people from printing mass ballots and actually making it work. Yes, you can probably print select ones, but it's not going to be something you can do on a wide scale basis. And there's no evidence of countries doing that. Number nine, miscellaneous ballot improprieties. Are there some? Oh yeah, there are. There are problems everywhere. However, what Trump typically does, and many Republicans do, is they will take an isolated incident, and it could be small, medium, or large, but they will then make it into evidence of massive voter fraud. An incident is an incident. It is not evidence of voter fraud. So, yes, there are improprieties, and yes, Trump does acknowledge those improprieties, and yes, he does distort and lie about those improprieties, and yes, he does create those into some large fiction about voter fraud. Number 10, Trump will say there is an election on November 3rd. That is false. Wait, that was true. Trump said something that was true. November 3rd, there is an election. So that means out of 10 massive statements he's made about the election, one is correct, 9 are not. 90% is an A if you get them all 90% right. If you get them 90% wrong, that's an F. Total misinformation. So there's the summary. Okay, so I'm going to let the facts speak for themselves. I'll try and put a sheet at the end that has this stuff listed out. And everyone go and vote, please. And it is really our obligation, but it's also a privilege. And we want to have a system of peaceful transfer of power, and we want to transition of power. We want to participate in that. So good luck. Hope everything goes well.
Look at this crowd. The only way they can win Pennsylvania, frankly, is to cheat on the ballots. That's the way I look at it. And I don't think it's fair that we have to wait a long period of time after the election. If people wanted to get their ballots in, they should have gotten their ballots in long before that, a long time.
Hopefully, the few states remaining that want to take a lot of time after November 3rd to count ballots, that won't be allowed by the various courts, because, as you know, we're in courts on that.
We heard Donald Trump say again today that courts just cannot allow votes to be counted after Election Day, which I guess he means what, right after midnight on Election night. What was your experience with vote counting in California, and what is the law on vote counting in California?
Yeah, President Trump here is just being ridiculous. Elections are not officially decided on election night in virtually every case. There's a process by which the Secretary of State certifies the election result. On election night, I didn't win and I didn't lose. The votes were still being counted, and it took 9 days of counting votes for me to be declared the winner.
I think it's a terrible thing when ballots can be collected after an election. I think it's a terrible thing when people or states are allowed to tabulate ballots for a long period of time after the election is over.
In 7 states, they can't even touch those absentee ballots, can't verify signatures, can't even take them out of the envelope, let alone count them until Election Day or the day after. And that includes the crucial states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Bottom line, John, we almost certainly will not know the result on election night.
I think it's a very dangerous, terrible thing. And I think it's terrible when we can't know the results of an election the night of the election in a modern-day age of computer. I think it's a terrible thing.
Confusing a little bit, right? Different states, different rules. So these are battleground states we have on the calendar here. If you live in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, or New Hampshire, your ballot has to be received by Election Day. In Texas, it could be the next day. Georgia and Pennsylvania give you essentially till the end of election week. But look, more than a half dozen battleground states, these are in the next week. Michigan right now says it could be received as late as November 17th. So if it's close, in these states, we could be counting for a while after Election Day.
One of the 21 states and the District of Columbia that will accept mail-in ballots that arrive after Election Day, as long as they're postmarked by November 3rd, though that, of course, is the subject of ongoing legal challenges in states like North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota.
According to the Center for Public Integrity, Republicans have set aside some $20 million on more than 300 court battles, all trying to make it more difficult to vote during a pandemic in an attempt to win that narrow electoral college victory. They've sued to block the counting of mail-in ballots postmarked by Election Day. They've limited ballot drop-off boxes to 1 per county in Texas and tried to invalidate nearly 127,000 votes in Houston. In Pennsylvania, election officials have accused the Trump campaign of trying to suppress mail-in votes, while the Democratic AG says they're intimidating early voters. Trump is planning to declare victory on Election night, regardless of how many votes still have to be counted. Listen closely to his advisor yesterday.
President Trump will be ahead on election night, probably getting 280 electorals, somewhere in that range. And then they're going to try to steal it back after the election.
Got that? They're planning to call the full and fair counting of votes stealing the election. Well, if anything, it would be the president trying to steal the election, because it isn't really over until every eligible vote is counted. Meanwhile, a loser declaring themselves the winner doesn't change reality, but it would open the door to conflict and a constitutional crisis.
And Republicans, you can count votes after today. The election does not have to be certified today. I think that's about it. And then music.